So moving on to our next segment, HR law and regulations. Now, personally, as an engineer with a marketing degree, it's probably the area I know least about, but I also acknowledge it's probably one of the most important areas for any kind of business going through rapid growth. And that's why I'm really pleased that Kath Harris from Unscripted HR has very kindly offered to share some really practical and important HR tips that us and SMEs who don't have the luxury of an in-house HR person should all be aware of. So with that, I'll hand over to Kath.
Thank you, Kavita, and thanks everyone for having me. I aim to maybe get a little bit of involvement if I can. We'll see how that goes. I think I've got about 5 minutes, don't I, Kavita?
Yeah, a little bit more than that.
A little bit more. I will basically attempt to share my screen now. Hopefully my technical skills are, here we go. Right, can you see a big hello?
We can, thanks.
Awesome, that's okay. Thank you everyone for having me. I had a quick intro before, but essentially this is a little bit about me and my background. I've been working in this consulting space for about sort of 12 years or so, and I primarily work with small to medium enterprise, anywhere from sort of 10 plus employees up to the sort of 80 mark from that perspective. And then I do have larger organisations that I work with on a more sort of retained type basis. So essentially, I cover lots of different industries as well, and pop in and out of organisations as they need or work with them ongoing. And so today I basically thought we would have a bit of a look at some of the pain points. Mostly when people come to me, they have a challenge, an employee challenge, a people challenge, an issue they need to solve, a problem. And so there we go, current HR challenge. So they've got something that they're looking to solve. Essentially, one of the key things that comes up a lot always pins back to, and you may have come across this, it's something to do with risk and compliance, and that's around possibly your brand, so your brand of your business and especially your employment brand, and what the risk is in regards to, obviously, from an employment legal perspective. I'm not going to cover too much around the legals today. We've got employment lawyers, I think, even on this call. But obviously, I do touch on it with my clients, because I guess what I'm trying to do is actually prevent them from having to go down that path. So I work with a lot of businesses around, really working with people from dealing with people from a heart perspective. So we know that we've got the legal and compliance elements that we have to meet, but we also want to make sure, we're treating our people well. And that obviously links to so many benefits, because if you're going to invest your time attracting and bringing and training people into your business, you want to retain them. And let's face it, we all get out of bed every morning and we want to enjoy what we do and where we go. So that's the base sort of where I come from. These are a couple of questions that come up from a compliance perspective. What sort of steps that do you take? I guess some of the key things that I would recommend that come up that you want to have in terms of just base level HR foundations is you've got to make sure you have proper employment documentation in place. Goes without saying, or a standard, but a lot of people don't necessarily do that. And that covers things from your employment contracts, setting those expectations right from the very beginning, and having a really solid onboarding process. What falls into that is obviously being really clear around what are your policies and procedures. Some people have handbooks. We've got a number of HR systems in the market now. that are really helping small to medium enterprise be much more compliant and actually just really streamline their administration and efficiencies, make it really easy to bring people in the business and ensure that even from a security and privacy and cyber perspective, that you've basically ticked those boxes to make sure that you're not keeping records on your email like super, bank details, tax file numbers, which I still come across when I do HR audits and HR health checks, which is something that comes up a bit. The other key things that you're probably more than aware of are things like just your health and safety. Even when you work in an office space, really important, or you've got people working obviously remotely and from a hybrid perspective, which we know comes up a lot. One of the other key, I guess, areas that comes up a lot from an employee cultural and workplace perspective is essentially, I just thought have a quick chat about these 3 questions. You know, how do I find great people? How do you keep them? And how do you develop them? So these are a few things that I work with a lot in regards to finding great people. You've got to be really clear around what your expectations are. I've worked a couple of times on roles where sometimes the goalposts change in between. So whilst in small to medium enterprise, you certainly have to be targeting individuals often that are a little bit more flexible, can deal with change, those sorts of things, because if you're in a business of sort of, 10 to 20, you're scaling, you need people that can sort of be quite hands-on in different areas. And that's what I find is that, we go out and we target and look for particular skills, but you're needing sort of quite a breadth of skills. And you also want to look at where these individuals have been. If you're bringing them into a small business, they've come from a corporate, very different environment. So you want to just be really upfront around that. I find a lot of churn in the 6 to 12 months in that area because businesses haven't really had a solid sort of selection process. So we talk about vetting your people, and the best, part in terms of being able to find people is your own network, but also your own employees. So anyone that's willing to put their hand up, say, hey, this is a great place to work, and is a referral, often is a great place. Obviously, you need to still have a solid, robust hiring selection process, but often I have found I've been a part of organisations where we've built great workplace culture because people that have that sort of alignment in terms of especially around values. So some really key things to sort of think about in terms of, how do you find great people? How do you keep them? I guess one of the things that comes up a lot is just recognition and celebrating success. So people really love to receive feedback, whether it's, to improve, or whether it's, hey, you've done a great work here and this is why. So I definitely promote different ways to recognise. It doesn't have to be financial. You might have, different Teams channels, or Slack's another tool that gets used widely these days, where people can just give each other recognition and just say, hey, thanks for working with me on that project. This was amazing, X, Y, Z. It goes a really long way. Career opportunities and development is obviously really key. I think a lot of businesses feel like sometimes the pressure around pay. We've got obviously a really interesting environment at the moment around cost of living, and people are looking for obviously higher salaries and higher rates of pay. But it can go a long way to go, hey, well, why don't we look at investing in training and development, whether it's on a conference or different opportunities there for them to grow in their career and their role. Lastly, I've touched on it, but around that development piece, look at options around even mentoring, coaching. Can you buddy them up with someone in your workplace or even externally? And it doesn't always have to be paid. So you can have those discussions when you're having, development and coaching conversations with your people, and look at how can they help identify to assist in their own growth and development in the role, and what can you do as well from a paid perspective. I'm not sure how much we've got left, Kavita, but if anyone is willing to put their hand up and answer one of these questions, that would be amazing. I feel like I've spoken at 1.5 on Audible.
All good. Look, we don't actually have time for questions today. We are out of time, but look, both Campbell and Kath, they're on Backbone, so you can reach out to them directly. Their details are there, or just reach out to me and we'll make the introductions for you.